do my best.
You have to go to the.
And remember, I'm not as techy as you all are. Let's see.
Can we put it here? I want to watch it. Can I monitor it?
Monitor what? Well,
It looks good there.
As long as I don't want to get in your way. That's fine.
No, it looks good.
All right, good.
Maybe put this at the edge and then put this. There.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, whoever's watching.
Nobody's watching.
Whoever's
It's
going to
recording.
watch, I know.
Or no, the funny thing is everybody is watching. Big Brother's watching.
What?
Like the funny people say that the government's watching us.
The government is watching.
Yeah. So all right.
Oh wait, you can't back up on this camera.
I know, I just wanted to say hi to whoever's going to watch
Oh,
the
okay.
video.
All right.
So
Let's
hi.
do. So I recorded. Are you recording this?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just teach, and then I'll tell you a funny
It's been a
story.
minute.
Actually, not a funny story at all. All right.
Can you
So
when it's done?
we're gonna do inverse. Okay. So inverse functions. All right. So when you have f of x.
You can't really see it on the board. A little bit.
Good.
Maybe you should zoom in.
I'll just
Zoom in a little bit.
zoom in just a
You can
little
zoom in a
bit.
little bit. Okay. So
There.
What did I put this?
okay. So -1, the inverse of this function. Okay. So remember, what's this really written? How's this really written?
1 over f.
Right.
No, that's not.
That's another way of wording it, correct? Everybody agree with me? That's another way of wording it. The f of x is just the y. So when you're looking for the inverse of something, you need the other value, which is x. So you have to, all we're doing is we have to solve this equation in terms of x. So to get the inverse of the function, which is this, we have to solve for x by itself. Does that make sense? So watch carefully. What's the first step? Y minus 4 equals 5x.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Divided by 5. Divided by 5. X equals y minus 4 over 5. Does that make sense?
Is that all you're doing?
That's all you're doing. So
So you
what
can't
happens is you're rewording it, and then, here's the point. Can it be left? Is this the way it's supposed to be left?
No.
Really?
No. What do you have to do? Once you solve this, all you have to do is flip-flop x and y. So now, y equals x minus 4 over 5.
Wait, how can you even do that? That's not.
Is that legal?
Listen. This is legal for finding the inverse of a function. You don't do this. You can't do this every other time. But
Oh, because it's the absolute opposite.
yeah, because we're just trying to find the opposite, right?
Makes sense.
So when you have an equation 1/2 x equals y, what's the inverse function? Well, you have to multiply both sides by 2, right? The direct opposite. Well, this is a little more complicated because it has all the values in it. And so when you work it out, and then you just flip-flop, and now that's the inverse function. Okay?
So what is that? What is
So that means
That's
-1 is
y.
inverse. Remember,
Oh.
-1 is the
So
inverse.
that's saying
So then that just
inverse.
1 over y?
Yeah. It's 1 over y, which is what this is right here.
So could you work it out differently?
You can't. Just know to do this. You're solving for, when you solve for inverse, you walk it down and then flip x and y. So just remember, so solve it, solve for y. So your steps are solve for y, flip x and y.
Aren't you solving for x?
No, I solve for y. So I solve, I'm sorry, oops, sorry. Solve for x, then flip x and y.
Sounds good.
Okay, so here's 2 steps. One step, step 1, step 2. So if you remember those steps, just if you're looking for the inverse, step 1, solve for x. Step 2, flip. And you're left with y equals x minus 4 over 5. So this would be x minus 4 over 5.
Oh, okay, so it's not like you're actually leaving it as y.
Yeah.
So technically the answer,
Yeah.
that should be circled.
This is
Technically.
this is really the circle. This
So
is
it's not
the
really, it's not really like you're flipping x and y, you're just,
Oh yeah. All I'm doing is solving for it But that's, in order to get it, that's how you would solve. Okay?
Okay. And you have to label as f of x
Mm-hmm.
to the.
Yep, f of x to the negative 1. Yep. So it's either going to be here, sometimes it'll be there, and sometimes it'll be right here. That means
That's a little bit weird.
it means the same thing.
Wait, wouldn't it be +4?
Oh, yeah. Good. You caught it. Good job. +4, +4. Yeah, because when I bring it over, +4. There were two. You were two. We were. It's like anything. You're two. And this is what happens in your test. We're too worried about the big picture and not the little picture. Does that make sense? The detail. All right. Okay. Any questions on that? So let's do another one.
The answer would be +4.
Yeah. So let's practice. Let's do another problem
I like this.
like this. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Can you just move on?
Yeah. I'm gonna set it up over here if you don't mind.
The directions will just be like, find the inverse function.
Find the inverse. Or they'll say, tell me if it's an inverse. Okay? So if it is, how do you check if it's an inverse?
I don't know.
I'll show you in a second, but
Your head's cut out.
that's okay. It's okay. Actually, I try to, like when I'm teaching it, I try to get out of the picture because I don't really like being in the picture. All right.
I'm moving to you.
All right. Are we good? Any
Yeah.
questions?
No.
Okay. So let's do another practice problem. Is it on this board or that board?
I can move it.
Just
I
move
don't
back
know.
over here. We'll do another problem real quick. We'll practice it, and then, so if I have, and then we'll need to go to that board. F of x, 3x minus 1. So let's find the inverse of that. Let's find f of negative 1x. What will it be?
Subtract
Wait,
one.
is
Well, make
f
it
of
y.
negative
Make it
1x,
y.
or
Just
is
so it
this
makes
Same.
sense.
This is the same thing.
Okay.
It's the inverse. F of negative 1 is inverse.
F
So I
of
want the
negative
inverse.
1x or f of x negative 1? Are they the same?
They're the same. It's the same way of wording.
Oh, okay.
So watch carefully. The book uses this one primarily, I believe. So that's what. All right, so here we go. What do we do first? Y equals 3x minus 1, right? Add 1, add 1. Y plus 1 equals 3x. Divide by x equals y plus 1 over 3.
And then you switch them.
Switch them. And then, right up here. Good. Any questions?
I got.
I mean, this is
really easy.
This is honestly, that's why I said these next two lessons, you're like, after what we had to do, and now all of a sudden this, it's like, you're like, really? That was so hard, and now this is not simple, but it's easier. So, now let's go to this board over here. So go ahead and flip it over here. Now, remember, what's composite mean? Lisa, what's composite mean? Complete what? Complete substitution, right? So what do we do? So f of x is what? 3x minus 1, right? How would I solve this? I have to do what? Complete substitution of this in for that, right?
So you gotta do that first.
So, yep, so you're gonna have to solve that first, then do the complete substitution. Now watch carefully. What happens when you put the complete substitution in? Just wait, this is really cool. 3, complete substitution, x plus 1 over minus 1. Hey, stop! Don't get too excited here. 3 and 3 do what? X plus 1 minus 1.
So are we technically solving for 1?
What does that give us?
X plus 0.
1.
So that means
He
x
was afraid to come in, he didn't want to disturb your class.
Okay.
Figure out.
That makes
The
sense?
answer is x plus 0.
So the composite of this, of x of 0, is x.
So essentially, we're not really learning about the inverse. We're learning about composite inverse.
So what you're learning is this, is that in order, when you do the inverse, and if you put it back into the composite, what you're going to find is that it's always gonna come out as x.
Wait, what is f in the story?
Y equals x.
Wait, f in the story is 3x plus 1. That's your original.
So
This is so over there, so over here, see? We
Oh,
did this,
yeah.
f of x, and this is our f of 1. So when we plug them back in, all we're doing is f of x is this. We plug in, complete substitution, work it out, and it's going to really, what it becomes is y equals x. When it's the composite of the inverse and the non-inverse. can I ask you a question? 1/2 times 2 over 1, what does that equal? What does that
One.
equal? 1. The inverses, right? Remember?
So if
The
you don't,
inverses.
if you don't get to a step where you have y equals x, you're kind of like doomed.
You messed up your math.
So technically, the answer is found in the work.
Yeah, so you do the work over. So what I just showed you, so just so you understand, what I just showed you is how to check your inverses. Does that make sense? To make sure you didn't make a math error. This is how you do the inverse. This is how you check them.
Okay.
But they're going to also say, hey, plug it in, and now you need to do in there, and then you're going to see that the answer is really going to be y equals x.
Okay.
Any questions? Are we good? Any questions on this? Okay. The last thing, you know what? You know what we'll do? I'll teach the last part. Because I really want to give you 20 minutes to work on homework.
Okay.
And I know the next part is a little bit more confusing. Let's just try it. I'll try it real quick. Right, and if we don't, I'll only spend 5 minutes on it. I want to still give you 20 minutes. Okay, so keep a timer, 5 minutes. At 5 minutes, we're stopping, even if we're not
5
done.
minutes.
5 minutes.
Go.
Just watch it from now. I'm watching that clock. So here we go. So last thing is graphing these. So what they're going to give you is a graph. So let's take an instance. Are we on which board are we on, Emma?
That one. Sounds
Okay.
good.
So if I have a graph, it looks like so, okay, and it has okay. So let's say that right there. Everybody good with that graph?
Mm.
If I want to graph it inversely, the inverse of this, what would it be?
Just be flipped.
It would be
across.
like that.
It's pretty obvious, right?
Inflation.
But what's it going to be over though? Is it going to be over this? Over this?
Both.
It's gonna be in quadrant
Are
2.
you sure?
Yeah.
So this is the confusing. This is the one thing you need to know.
Okay.
It's not over the x or the y.
What is it?
The inverse is going to be over. Remember, what was the composite? Remember, what was the composite equation?
Zero.
Y equals what?
X. So
Can somebody graph y equals x for me? Do you know how to
Isn't
graph
it just
that?
a
It's
line?
just a line.
Yeah. What line?
Straight across from zero, yeah. Oh, so then you're
That
you're flipping
so-
it that way.
Listen. Remember,
Mhm.
this is the final answer, right? Of the composite and its inverse. So what would the inverse graph be, class?
It would be.
Well, you gotta take that verse.
That makes sense? Because if you took them and multiplied them together, basically is what this is doing, right? You're going to get this line.
So can you in red draw it?
So I will draw the graph in red.
Thank you.
This point is 1.
Mm-hmm.
So now, if it gets closer to the x here,
It'll get closer to the X there.
no. The
Other
x
side.
or the opposite, which is the y, right? So it's going to be what?
What?
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
Let's see. Oh, make sure I get it right. Yeah, it's going to go like this. Oh, it goes through. Sorry. So if it's 1 here, it's 1 here.
Okay, yeah, that makes more
Yeah.
sense.
And it goes like this,
Yeah.
okay?
Would it be
So
on that axis?
it's not. It's so like
Oh,
this
it's
one
not.
goes as close as possible. This is going as close as possible.
Okay.
So
Makes sense.
so what graph is this? It's an exponential graph, right? So it'd just be the opposite of that is what that is. And it's going to go through that one. So if this is down 1, goes through this one, and it's going up and getting. So if it's not getting close to the x, it's going to get close to the y. Does that make sense to everybody? Is everybody following that?
But it's not always gonna be horizontal. Depends
It
what
might-
the answer is.
This is always going to exist because of this.
It's always gonna be horizontal, but it doesn't always go through the zero.
Right, it might, well, no, let's go through 0.
Why?
Because
This is y equals x.
this inverse always is going to be,
Y
alright,
equals zero?
okay, always going to be y equals x.
Okay, what if it was y equals x
It's
plus
not
one?
going to ever be, because
does,
you
that's
can't
an
combine those x, it's like, will this ever be something other than 1?
No.
No, so it's the same thing here.
But what if it's y composite, f composite of h to the negative 1? Is that a possibility? If you had 2 problems, 2 options?
You're not, that's probably like maybe in calculus or something,
Oh, okay,
calculus
so we're not
4 or
doing
5
that
or,
right
yeah. No.
Okay.
This is all you'll do. is you're gonna have to look at this and regraph it over here. So like, if you have a different function, and I'll show you one more before we let you go. Go ahead and ask your question, and then I'll show
Okay,
you the drawing.
so I know that that line is always going to be like exactly that, but what if the graph goes over that line? Like,
What
is
do you
that
mean?
possible?
So, it can't.
So it can't just be like
If
a
it does,
parabola over there.
Yeah, so let's do another one. Look at 18. Everybody look at problem number 18 in homework.
So that line is kind of like an asymptote.
It's not an asymptote.
Kind of.
It's going to go over it, and this is answers your question. If it goes over that line, watch how it works.
Does it cut
Yeah.
kind of weirdly?
So let's say look at 18. Everybody look at number 18. We got a graph number 18. So
18, page 186.
page 186. Everybody there?
4.3.
Okay, 4.3, 186, and we know that their inverse is this. We know that. That will not change. It cannot change. Okay, because not the inverse, but the composite of that inverse is going to be.
You got 20 seconds.
All right, got 20 seconds. We're doing a homework problem, so we're good. All right, so f of x equals x cubed. So if I graph x cubed, what would that look like?
It would be over.
A quick sketch of x cubed would look like what? Like this,
Swirly.
We're really
Yeah.
love those.
right?
That's right.
Okay, that's a quick sketch. So notice that it goes over here.
Uh-huh.
So what would the inverse function be?
Wouldn't
And this
it
answers your
start
question.
here?
Which way? So if these are going up and down there,
Would
what would
just
the
be
what
a
would
decay?
It
the
would be
opposite be?
like the negative one.
Yeah.
It's not. But now listen. It can't be going up in the
It would
y.
be over the x.
Exactly.
The x, yeah.
So and it's got to be flipped.
Oh, so it's like.
So it's.
Can you write the new one in a different color?
I have blue.
Oh.
Yeah, I was trying to concentrate because I'm not real good at art, remember? And I want to make sure I get it right.
It's gonna be over the y,
So-
and so it's gonna look like a
Yeah, so like
cycloid thing, almost, right?
yeah, so it's gonna be so if this goes like this, then this goes this.
It's so pretty.
So like that's what I'm trying to concentrate. I'm not real good. This is my
So you
weakness.
basically like pick it up and you go like that.
Yeah. So remember, this one's going parallel with this. So then if I flip it, if I'm inversing it, it has to go against the y's or the x's. Right? Does that make sense? So remember that first graph that I did? I'll do it real quick as a reminder. So it went like this. It went like this. No, where was it? I can't remember. Well, we could do it. Like if it's going like this, what would the inverse of that be? Over that function. Sorry.
Oh, it was like that, and then it followed along the y.
Right. Okay, so then it's going to fall along the y, right?
Can you delete the other line just so that it doesn't get
Yeah,
distracted?
yeah.
Because there's already a lot.
So just all you're doing is so if it's going up against the x's, against the y's, when you do the inverse, it's against the x, and vice versa.
The opposite.
Yep.
So then this was up against the y, and now it's up against the x by the horizontal line now.
Correct.
Okay, and then this one.
This diagonal line is what you're flipping it over, basically.
This one does not deal with the diagonal line, really.
Why does this look
Does.
so much better than mine?
How?
Look,
Why does his look better than
it's
mine?
like exactly the same on either side.
Mine died.
Oh, I
So
see.
you gotta have to have blue ones.
So I'm not worried
Oh, is
about that
that
as
it?
much. We'll review that but now you have 20 minutes, so go ahead and stop that. Here's what I want you. This is the stuff that you can do, guaranteed. So let's make sure you smile pretty. 'Cause
It's
it's
an
gonna be
Adidas
YouTube
phone
soon.
case.
I guess so.
All right, I want you to do 1, 2,